Sarah's not here, I don't know if she told you.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
And Huntley let me know he wouldn't be here unless he decides that he really needs to make it on Zoom, and he said he wasn't sure they would.
Okay.
First order of business is to determine who our voting members are. Scott? Chris? David?
Yeah.
John?
And Sarah's on via Zoom.
Sarah? Hi, Sarah.
Uh,
All right. You-
1, 2,
And
3, 4.
thank you, Dick's here. Yeah, okay. Jim?
7.
Yeah.
We're all good, so you don't get to vote tonight.
Good.
But
I'll
you
be
get,
an observer.
but, no, you're a participant.
Okay.
With that responsibility.
You still have responsibility to give. Okay,
Review the minutes from July 8th.
any modifications, changes?
I have two. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Under public comment, the first paragraph, and it was that where Scott was asked, speaking of his situation, and asking the board if possible how to proceed in converting the portion of the property to common use land. And there was, what's missing is whether the planning board gave any comment or what any advice was given. And I don't know whether we did or not.
And my question wasn't specifically, I don't think, about common use land. It was more, if we wanted to move the sites, if we wanted to change the number of sites, you know, would that go through a subdivision application, or would it go through a building permit application?
What did we say?
I think Sarah's correct. We left it hanging somewhere.
You don't say.
The other bit is over on page 2, on the second lot line adjustment continued. About 2/3 of the way down, talking that we had the plat was missing a statement releasing the town from liability and barred the land from being developed. Andy asked, I think there's a phrase missing there. It should be barring the land from being developed within the well radius. I think that's what we were needed. Otherwise, we were saying that we were barring the land from being developed at all, and that's what the sentence says, and I don't think that's what we meant.
Yeah, it is within the well radius, so we can modify that.
Just add that phrase, and that will, because that then matches down with the moving to approve conditionally on including the waiver regarding the well radius. That's it.
Any other? Thank you. Thank you for reading carefully. Do I have a,
I move to accept the minutes conditional on the corrections made.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
The next thing on the agenda, any public comment not already on the planning board's agenda for this evening?
Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, at least until later. All right, we're good.
Done? Okay. Then is the Beal House discussion, Andy?
Okay.
You're on, we said we'd do you early, so that
That-
you can get in and out.
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate you all making time for us, period, and getting us in early.
All right.
So I've got, I'm Andy Fisher from Amanuensis Survey Company, and I've got a handful of copies of things that might hopefully just help make things clear as to what it is that we're talking about. That's what I have. So I've got a couple of sheets here. This is
I mean, your
essentially.
description made total sense. No.
Did it? Yeah, just in case it didn't. I didn't go around here. I apologize for the small text.
We consider this as an informal, this is perfect.
Good, okay, good.
In fact, it
I
would
know-
have
I was trying to,
been, back of a napkin would have been better, but you know.
I could have done that, but my handwriting is not very good, so what we're looking at here are, these are 3 existing lots. Andrew Beal, who is in the audience here, these are on Dundee Road, across the street from a subdivision that came before the board not too long ago. I think not in person, but so if anybody is not quite sure of where we're talking about, we can get you there. But as of now, there are 3 lots of record. I tried to color code them for sort of to make it a little bit easier. So the yellow lot is what I think of as the house lot. So it's the house and the barn, all the existing structures as of now. The purple is sort of the middle lot that has no frontage, and then the pink is what is essentially the back lot that does have 33 feet of frontage on Dundee Road. So that's how things look now, and what our proposal would be is a boundary line adjustment, which would take the 3 lots and make them into 2 lots. So essentially, the biggest change, I guess, or one of the main changes would be the middle lot, so to speak, the purple lot.
Thank you.
Would disappear, would become part of the other 2 remaining lots. You're welcome. And so the boundary line adjustment portion is really straightforward. I wouldn't necessarily have requested that we come before the board just to deal with the boundary line adjustment to make 3 lots into 2 lots. The question that we, again, knowing that this is non-binding, but just to get direction, what would be the ideal situation is taking the 33 feet of road frontage, which is on the west side, or what I think it was like the Black Mountain side of things, and shifting that, so that's the existing frontage for the back lot. So what we would like to do is shift that frontage from the west side to the east side.
Is that this right here?
That's the existing frontage now.
Okay, gotcha.
And so what we would be doing is,
Get them into the.
Yep.
yeah, so we would extend we would basically expand what I would call the house lot. We would push it back towards what is this is I think this is Hiller back here. So we would push it away from Dundee Road, and then we would push it west to the existing stone wall, which is the edge of the property. And then the frontage for the back lot would shift to the east side, and it would increase from 33 feet to about 113 feet or so. So really, the question is, you know, we're dealing with pre-existing non-conformity. We would be shifting a non-conformity from one side to another side and making the back lot more conforming or less non-conforming, depending on how you would like to say it. It makes sense in many ways for that existing house lot, the house, the barn, the fields there, to extend to the existing stone wall on the Black Mountain side of things. It just makes more sense practically and aesthetically for that lot to extend to the stone wall and then shift the frontage to the other side, giving it more frontage. And both resultant lots would be obviously increased in size with the sort of the absorption of the middle lot.
Andy, question?
Andy, how much frontage would that leave the house lot?
The house lot would, let me put my glasses on. The house lot would retain about 389 feet.
Oh, okay, so there's plenty,
Plenty, yeah.
okay.
Andy, question I had was, you identify an intermittent stream in the area that would then be the access to the rear lot. What's the potential for that in terms of like wetlands and being able to access that? Would it require a bridge or what?
Yes, no to the bridge. Yes, either way, whether the pink lot, the back lot,
Yeah.
whether it were accessed by the existing 33 feet of frontage or the proposed switch to the frontage, either way there would, in order to develop that back lot, there would be a wetlands crossing required. Either, whichever way.
There would be, looks like two with the new way,
There might be two.
but at least the new way allows a road. I don't think 33 feet would allow a road that would allow subdivision in the back lot because it's not quiet.
And there's no, I don't think there's any,
You could put a driveway in there.
you put a driveway, and that's the intent, either way.
But if you wanted to subdivide the back lot, you'd need a road that provides frontage, and you wouldn't do that in the 33. I think you could, right, in the 113, would that be doable?
I think it would be, if that were, if somebody chose to do that, yes. I could believe so.
So these lots are not involved in the Dundee project for the Upper Saco Land Trust?
No, they're separate,
Yourself?
yes.
Any other questions, comments?
Did I miss anything, or?
Well, I just say that I think we're always amenable to reducing the number of lots. And this seems to be a good way. I don't know what would happen in the future. There's somebody carves out some more. Hey, we're getting rid of one potential. So I think that's always been a good thing.
Yeah, I don't even think you can get a building permit for the middle lot since there's no frontage at all, and the state requires some frontage for.
Well, if they started reconfiguring even, what's here to do that, which they might. Town spec road, they may say, okay, we'll put in a town spec road, and then we'll have, access to more and more.
But I think doing it this way, it just opens up more possibilities on top of making it less conforming.
If you put a driveway in there for the back lot, couldn't you put two homes on that, whether you divided it into two lots? Wouldn't that driveway allow two homes?
The driveway wouldn't, but,
Your driveway wouldn't?
no, but a road to town specs would,
And that would require
the wider.
subdivision down the line, which wouldn't, there's no that's not an intention certainly at this point, and that would not, a subdivision of the back parcel is not something that we're proposing at all.
But it may come forward some future generation,
Who can say?
or who knows, 2 decades from now.
Right.
2 years. 2 months.
But that's not,
All right.
none of that is planned.
So you're looking for preliminary guidance, and I think you heard from Dick. Anybody have any other thought of that? I think Dick expressed what we have generally tried to do here, which is to take a non-conforming process and make it less non-conforming. Yeah.
Exactly, that's it seems a win-win for everybody involved, but we wanted to come.
So instead of having 2 bad situations, we have 1 bad.
We have one.
One better bad
situation. But
situation.
it's right.
One better bad situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's really all that we were hoping for, was just to get an idea
All right.
if we're missing something, or if this seems
No.
as reasonable to the board as it does seem to us.
Yeah, I mean, the only question I had was wetlands, and obviously, as you're saying, you're gonna have issues any which way in that back lot,
No matter what.
and you're gonna have to deal with it, and that would be part of the process.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and all those wetlands were delineated by wetland scientists, so they're
Yep.
all, they are, and yeah, absolutely, someone would have to jump through those hoops, at whatever.
As long as you feel it's a hoop that you can jump through, then,
Right, then it's.
I think that's what I'm saying, is I don't want you to set it up and then say, oh,
No, I mean, to me,
we
it's.
really messed ourselves up.
No, either way,
Yeah.
it's
Is that all trees, or is it field, or combination?
so, if you kind of, let me look at, show you a little bit,
It's a nice
I
stone wall.
took off a lot of the layers of the plan that we had here. So you can see that, so these lines, these are stone walls, so this is all, this is open, this is all open. This starts to get wooded, and then this through here is wooded. Mostly, most all of it is wooded. Yep.
Old farmland, I would take it.
It is old farmland, and, I mean, Andrew could give you more details on that, but yeah, absolutely, it's.
We used to be able to see Jackson all the way down to the Davis, the old Davis farm from there.
Oh,
Used to be all clear.
mm.
Thank you for your time, thank you for getting us in, and yeah, for your input, and you're all welcome to start.
Do you want them back?
If it was a little colder, I'd say start your fires with them, but otherwise I'll take them back and recycle them if nobody wants them, or. Okay. Thank you folks very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. You want it? You keep them, okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is the discussion of the groundwater protection plan. Everyone should have gotten a copy of that. There's a copy here.
Here, oh,
You want to get this?
Yes, I did that.
I have a, thank you.
All right. Did anybody get a chance to read these? I did. This is fairly comprehensive. My understanding is that the chair of the planning board is also on the committee that's working to try to get all of our towns to pass these things and get these into our zoning regs. So they did a superior job. This is fairly comprehensive. There are a bunch of words I don't know what they mean in here. A few I looked up, and I still don't really have a good understanding of everything. But it references all the appropriate RSAs. And the thing that, when I looked at this, that it seemed to me our challenge would be, is to indicate where our locations are within town that we would have to identify and map to establish those as areas where we would want the ordinance to apply. This one specifically says that private homes do not have to follow the ordinance. So it excludes a great deal of properties. And if we were to follow that same arrangement, it would exclude most all of the town, except for areas that are right around some of the waterways. And then it applies primarily to businesses, and so again, it's going to limit the number of applications that are possible.
Is there some way that we can get, is there some way that we can have here that can tell us, you know, how much of a problem this particular thing is, how likely it is? I mean, you know, I think we need to go into it both knowing, you know, the value of what we're doing, but weighed against the restrictions that we may be applying, and are we getting enough value for the restriction that, you know, that we apply?
I think when the presentation was done with the Conservation Commission, they did actually provide us with some information around that. We have a very limited exposure at the moment, and that's a good thing. On the other hand, if we put it in place and someone comes in with the idea that they're going to do a particular development process, and we don't have these kinds of regs into our zoning ordinance, then we're in the position of not being able to legally limit certain kinds of development that we might not prefer.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we not do anything, I'm just saying that, you know,
Yeah,
knowing what the cost is at the same time as what the value is. And, you know, there may be something that has little value but a lot of cost, or vice versa.
What do we examine now? I know they examine the water system, the town water system, and I understand that they test up at the old dump, the water up there, which is right on the Wildcat River, right? Yeah. But that's all that I would know of that they currently test.
Well, they test up at the Dana place because it's a community well up there. I know they went through quite a process to get the approval because they had to have a pump for the sprinkler system ahead of the shut-offs for the water. It had to have its own. Anyway, there are some community wells that need to be monitored, I think every 6 months. Maybe once a year, I don't know, but community wells over 15 taps or 25 had people using it. I think those are so it's around. I mean, you figure the water at the Eagle has to be
All the ends are
tested because they're serving many people.
We do have regulations already in the books about what can be developed in the village district and what can't be in terms of businesses, like gas stations and things like that. Mobile home parks.
Or, you know, places like Snowflake, Wildcat Tavern, Wentworth, that's on the town water system, aren't they?
But Eagle, Whitney's, Christmas Farm is not, so they have to have their water tested independently, I believe.
But that's already been done, right?
It's done as part of the regular maintenance
Okay.
thing,
Yeah, to me, when I read through, it seemed that the primary focus on this was twofold. One was storage of any fuels, hazardous waste materials, to ensure that there's very specific guidelines in place in the event that someone chooses to do that. And many of those things are already regulated by the state. And we, as you mentioned, John, I think we have some things in place relative to some of that, but not all of it. And that's the issue, is it's not all of it. The other one is that if you are going to create a non-permeable surface greater than, I think, 2,500 square feet is the limit that is set here, is that if you're developing a property or changing anything on a property, that you take appropriate steps to ensure that the stormwater is appropriately managed. And particularly with the fact that we expect to have more severe weather opportunities in the coming decade, the likelihood of having runoff at greater volumes than we've experienced in the past century are going to just be there. And it's likely that the current processes we have, it doesn't say that we're going to do this retroactively, but if someone's out there and wants to pave a lot because they have expanded numbers of rooms or facilities or whatever, and it's not permeable, that they're taking the proper steps to make sure that the water is going to run off properly. I think when I look at it, those are the two thrusts here that are different from, John, I think what you're saying is that we already have pretty much regulations in place, although, to be honest, I'm not sure where they are. And if you're a developer and you're looking at what's going on, and you want to have something that's accessible that says this is what's you can't do in Jackson.
For like the Wildcat Service Station, when they stopped the gas station there, did they have to remove the tanks?
Yes.
How about under the Badger Realty, did they ever remove those tanks?
I think they did. There was a mandate a number of years ago that any tanks that had been in the ground for 20 years had to be tested, and most of them had to be replaced. That's when Irving came around and brought up all the mom and pop stores, because they had the money to do the new tanks. I mean, they're pretty expensive.
But I would assume that by the rule, was that a town rule, a state rule?
It was I think it was a federal mandate.
Yeah, I think it would be
I just hope that they've been removed. A lot of people forget that that was a gas station.
I don't want to get deep into this tonight. I'd like everybody to take a look at it and see what things you think we should be looking at more detail, which things we should look at and say, maybe not for us.
I think they're asking us to think ahead. You figure water is going to become a pretty big come up. Clean water already in the world is a problem, but we certainly don't have it yet. But, we have to look at, a water extractor coming in and taking off surface water, say, the Wildcat, or tapping into any of our water sources that, we should be on top of now. Let's think about it now, before it comes, to bite us later, because I think that's what this is all about. Because we aren't in that too much of that aquifer that they talk about to protect that, which I think is very important because that serves a whole lot of people.
Is there anything in here about someone coming in and tapping into our water supply?
And we're at the upper end of it all.
And this seems to be more about protecting the quality of our water, but that's a good thought, is
That's a good thought.
should we protect the quantity of water as well?
This does not publicly, specifically address, development of, I didn't see anything in here.
I mean, I don't know what the potential is here, you know, whether it be a Fuller Spring site or something, but
We're probably not the best. We're at the back end of the aquifer presentation that has been made that I've attended a couple of them now. Shows that we are a source for those aquifers, primarily, not that we have just the very tip down by the Ellis River where the dam is as close as we come to being a part of the aquifer. But you've got all the rivers feeding, and what we've got here is the sources, and if we send out water into the downstream, it's not good water to draw from.
Is there a risk from all the people using Jackson Falls? I mean, when we see 50, 60, 70 people, you know, gathered around Jackson Falls and a number of kids in the water, who knows what is discharged into the water? Is there a risk there?
I think if everybody peed in the water, I think we'd still be okay.
It moves pretty fast.
You don't drink the water.
But, you know,
At least
you may want to just not consider drinking
or swimming by the
after a
bridge.
Saturday.
Yes. No, I just meant downstream. Because it's gotten to be outrageous up there.
People love it.
Well, they love it, but they don't honor it.
It's a,
They don't honor it. I mean, what's going on this week is just horrid. The little boxes that the Boy Scouts or whoever put up
Or stuffed with
To-
garbage.
to have dog bags are now filled with dog bags with waste. Diapers that are
And
dirty.
other kinds of garbage, not just.
Yeah, diapers that are dirty.
oh boy.
I mean, it's terrible. We walk, you live across the street, but I mean,
Yeah,
we walk our dog down there and it's horrid.
and there were
Today I ran
there were
into-
only 7 Massachusetts cars in the resident parking today.
Yes, I know, I was down with my dog talking to Ryan, the police officer, and there were 7 cars, 4 of which were Massachusetts, and the other 3 were not residents of Jackson. And they were in the Jackson,
3 parking
Section.
spots?
they were in the 3 spots, the 3 spots. And this is,
It sounds like maybe we need better enforcement.
Well,
well, the policeman comes by once an hour.
He's writing a bunch of tickets.
yeah, he wrote a plan.
But to answer your question, I doubt it.
Okay,
That is another problem, but it's not ours to solve.
yes.
To the point.
John's, that's
Would we not, and we probably open a can of worms if we did, expand this to private? I'm just looking at some of these performance standards,
yeah.
you know, like dumping petroleum, changing my oil, throwing it in my yard. I mean, you could have people doing that in their private homes. Is there a reason why, do you know why they excluded it, or was it just?
Probably so it would pass.
And the incidence is probably not enough to cause.
And I think the flip side of that is how do you enforce? And I guess that's a good question to ask. Those are all good questions to ask.
Well, I think you could put in there that, not necessarily how you're gonna be able to enforce it, but, you know, if you have like paint products, disposable oil products, you take it to the transfer station. I actually take my oil to Donnie Chase, and he heats his garage with it. Get old stale gasoline, he takes that.
But you're probably right, we could get it passed, we could probably,
I think we would need to take a look to see what things are out there. And yeah, but I don't see a problem with that.
do you know of other towns that develop these?
This one is the only one, no, there's like 3 towns that have done ones that are similar to this. They've actually just taken this and pretty much
Oh, okay.
put their name on top of it and put their own map on top of it.
I was just wondering if there's others that we could look at, but they just took this one then.
Yeah. The opportunities, though, that I think were offered by the folks who are pushing this, they had like about 14 pages of opportunity. So this is much smaller, a smaller subset.
Oh, the first handout I got on this was almost a book. I mean, it was
Yeah.
massive, it covered everything. But that's why I think we should pick through it and, see what we can use. We don't have to take everything, because we already have an ordinance against gas stations, so, we don't have to hammer that home.
Right.
And maybe one thing, not particularly connected to this, but maybe we should do some water monitoring. And maybe the Conservation Commission should actually do it, but, because they're nice and young and spry. But if we just had a baseline as to what we have, say, at the town line, and then work back upstream, and just see, what we're putting into that water as it comes through town.
Yeah, the question I have on that, Dick, would be, what part of that fits into the zoning ordinance versus what part of that fits into other kinds of ordinances, which are really the select board's purview. We're supposed to be involved with development or process of it rather than being an enforcement agency. We're not an enforcement agency. So I agree with you on concept.
Yeah.
Question is,
Well, I'm not saying that we should do it, or let's put it off to the Conservation Commission, because it would be appropriate for them. And it would, we could ask them, speaking with them, board to board, and say, we should have a baseline of what we've got for water, because it's gonna be a terrible situation if people go, oh, Jackson, great place to visit, don't drink the water. We don't wanna go through that, so.
Kathy?
Doesn't the water precinct, Jackson Water Precinct, have something to do with this as well? I mean, aren't they monitoring things? I don't know exactly what they do, but I think that they're monitoring things, as far as the water goes around in the whatever the precinct area
They
is.
do, and so,
Between the Conservation Commission and the water precinct, I think that they should be able to
I mean,
figure it out.
this would be one part of a multiple effort from the selectmen, the Conservation Commission, and your water boards. And this specifically, and that's why when you take a look at that big package, the big package goes through the whole part of it and how each of the different organizations really need to coordinate, which is why they came at us as a group. And then this is what they looked at and said, this is what you really need from the planning board's perspective. So that if there's new development or changes, you have ordinances in place for that particular, so that somebody doesn't just begin to start doing something that you don't want them to do. Sarah, you have any comments?
Well, I never got a copy of what you guys were looking at.
It was in the,
I,
It was one of the handouts that David sent.
I read it online.
Say again?
I got it.
It is one of the handouts that David sent electronically with the agenda.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Okay, so yeah, if you haven't read it, then I can appreciate you don't have a strong comment. Thank you.
A skin in the game.
I was looking for it, but, it was from David, so I'll see if I can find it.
All right. I know you've got a time constraint, so if we can push a little bit, I'd like
You're
to.
welcome to continue, no.
Yeah, what I want to do tonight was just get this in front of everybody, get everybody to start thinking about how this fits in. And let's put it on the agenda for the next time, and then let's dive into it a little bit further, with a little bit more informed, process.
Oh, there it is.
Well, it's
Sounds like,
Behind you.
all right, next please on the agenda.
okay, next thing on the agenda is the short-term rental application review. There are only 2 for tonight,
How did I get 10 pages out of 2?
well, because each application is 10 pages.
That explains it.
On the agenda, you are the 2 that are there. The first one is Gary Katie, Town Hall Road, 3-bedroom, building permit, 3-bedroom septic on file, advertising 4 bedrooms, sleeps 8. We will be limited to, and this is one of the newer ones, so this will be a limited 30 rental annually. So they don't meet, the advertisement does not meet what they say they're saying. So you have to-
It would still sleep 8 though, wouldn't it?
Yep.
They're advertising more than they have.
Yeah, it contradicts itself when it says 4 bedrooms and sleeps 8 because 8 work for 3.
So the sleeps are okay, 4 bedrooms, so we can suggest, and our comments to the selectmen would be that that would be already changed.
And do we have any idea whether their intent is to run the property as a short-term rental operation, but within 30 rentals, or whether it's a second home, or, you know, they use occasionally? I'm just curious, it's not part of our application.
I don't know if they say that on the application.
Based on what I could read in the application, there's no indicator that will tell us that, and we don't ask that, and they're not required to tell us.
I just was curious whether
Yeah.
the short-term rental operation thought 30 rentals was a viable.
There's Worcester, Mass?
Worcester.
Midwestern, okay.
Worcester.
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 Holy Cross.
Or Gloucester?
Not Worcester.
Okay, so would that be the comment?
Aye.
And we just accept the application?
All right, so the rest of the application is satisfactory.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, since we're not approving, we're accepting the application, do we want to accept the application then with a comment regarding the advertisement?
Yeah, I think that's
a great way to go about doing this, based on the issue we had the earlier time about not accepting the application. So do I have a motion to accept the application with comments regarding the bedroom?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion to accept the application with comments regarding the inappropriate bedroom advertisement, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Aye.
Inappropriate bedroom, what does that mean?
It's limited to what you can do there.
That's right.
Open the whole can of worms.
This one, next one is Sarah Lord on Main Street.
That's the restaurant.
That's right. It's keeping changed.
She's been doing that for a long time, I think, hasn't she?
Yeah, she bought it from Millie, I think.
Is she opening up again?
Yeah.
No, not the restaurant.
I know, I had heard this week that she was,
What was that?
that she was reopening.
Yeah, we get careful about spending
Oh,
rumors around
well, I know it's
at
empty.
public meetings.
The two-bedroom, septic on file, no building permit, two-bedroom tax, advertises two-bedroom, sleep 5. Now, I just have a question. She is in the business area.
Yeah.
She's not in the private.
Yeah, and you're pointed.
I thought this was only for conditions, permits, people doing the private
Oh,
residential.
100%. If you're in the business, all the Wentworth properties are in the commercial district. All the ones on the Route 16 corridor are in the business district. It's 100% of any properties that are short-term rentals, is what the ordinance says. It limits are different depending on where you're.
What about former inns?
Well, it's a good question. Former inn has to either decide that they're gonna be an inn, or they're out, or they're out of the inn business, and that they're gonna be a short-term rental.
Do we have one of those?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Where's that?
And they need to choose. The regulations are different for the two.
Up next to the Eagle,
Cardinal.
downhill.
Oh, yeah, yep, okay.
And that's their
The sign is
decision
still
how
out.
to do that. Yeah.
He
Beautiful.
came in, he wanted everything. He wanted to be able to do short-term rental, he wanted to run an inn,
Mhm.
But the question is, does an inn, is that pre-existing to our short-term rental ordinance?
Right now, it's a commercial property in a residential district, and it's been so for the last,
But we don't necessarily call, you don't have to get a business license to do a short-term rental. So we aren't really officially calling short-term rentals a business.
Right.
And so I'm not sure that because an inn is a business, that another business could be.
I think it would be really hard argument to say that because it was in before it was, and it was renting rooms there, that it didn't qualify to be grandfathered.
Grandfathered as an inn or grandfathered as short-term rental?
It's automatically grandfathered as an inn in our
Right.
current regs,
Right.
as long as they follow the requirements for an inn.
My other question is, are they gonna be subject to the 30-day,
They would not.
30 rental? They haven't been set up as a SDR yet. They're
No.
applying for it, so they
Right.
technically are not an SDR, that have got the grandfather aspect of it, I would think.
It would seem to go against the nature of what we proposed in these regulations to say if you've been in the business of renting prior to the zoning ordinance being passed, that you should be able to continue to do so without a change in your behavior. So whether it was an inn or not an inn, it would seem to be, you know, somebody could maybe make a legal argument that, well, it was an inn, not a residence when it was being rented.
But how long ago was it run as an inn?
Yeah.
It was a residence for a number of years,
Yeah.
so they may have lost that
It may not even
grandfather.
be an inn anymore.
Right, I mean,
It's been.
I think there's a
it-
5-year,
Yeah, but it's been run as an inn for the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
it had been, well, I remember when Dunwell had it,
Right.
and it was an inn, but then it became a private residence.
Hmm.
Well, it's not an inn anymore, it's a private residence.
It's been a private residence for extended period of time. I'm not exactly sure it's been 5 years, but if it's over that, you know, you lose your grandfathership.
It's
Just
been,
like the-
it's
just
been a
like the gas
private
station.
residence, because they were renting rooms there just last year.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that, I don't know
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know the owners
I
of the
mean, I
company
walk
that
by
sold it.
there almost daily,
Yeah.
and it has had cars pulled in from.
It's been an inn.
Yeah.
It's an
There's no doubt
inn.
about
It's
it.
been an inn.
Friends
I
of
don't
mine-
know what you're talking about.
But even
When you
if,
say it wasn't an inn, it's been an inn. I've only been here 7 years. All 7 years I've been here, it's been an inn.
Yeah. I've been coming up here for almost 20, and it's been in.
I'm not sure where you guys are coming from.
I thought it wasn't any longer as well, but
And
I didn't know that.
Because the two people that owned it from
Well,
New
if
Jersey,
you,
they don't.
if you talk to either Dan or Donna, they're currently working at the Grammar Inn,
Right, yeah.
they ran it as an inn.
Yeah, they did, they ran it. My
And
friends
they
stayed.
advertised it as and ran it as an inn. They had people who
Last year, put
all over
them,
New England.
if they've been paying the business tax, it will be an inn.
Yeah.
Because a short-term rental doesn't pay a business tax.
Right.
you know, they lived there and they ran it as an
I don't know, but again, we don't regulate inns.
And that's not even before.
Inns are inns,
Right.
they have a whole different.
They have
set of-
different
Oh, that's
life
good.
safety codes to adhere to.
Yeah.
and, it's a whole.
That's why I said I don't think he has a standing to be an automatic STR was because of the safety code violation things. I don't think being an inn and being a short-term rental are the same thing, because one requires a totally different set of codes versus the other one.
I don't
So
disagree.
to say that it was an inn and then say, oh, they want to turn it to short-term rentals, they can do that without that 30-week minimum or maximum, I think is what I'm questioning.
That's better Peter Malley question than here. We're not in that business.
inn. So can we accept Sarah's thing? And then I'll pass her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, Sarah Ward,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
she seemed fine.
Do I have a motion to
I'll
accept?
make a motion to accept
And a
Sarah.
second?
And I'll accept it.
We've got a second, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we're good on that.
The last thing on the agenda is adjournment.
Who's gonna take their hat off and put it on? But that's the big one.
I think we have a,
And Thursday night football starts tonight.
This is a guest hat person, so.
he's not a guest, you should be sitting up here.
Oh, is he on the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A motion to adjourn, please?
I will. I'll make that motion.
Second, all in favor? We're good, thank you.
I was at